Hello, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Simon. Today I'm interviewing Steve Woodley, a cancer survivor and recently just tracked to Kokoda. And we're going to talk a little bit about his history and what brought him to this point of his life and how life has changed post-cancer and what life was like pre-cancer. And about his fitness journey and just all about mindset, what's changed for him, what's different for him now compared to what life was like before. So, g'day Steve, welcome to another episode with Simon.
Thanks, mate.
Having this conversation with you is a long-term friend of mine. How long have we known each other for now, buddy?
Oh, probably about 3 or 4 years, I would say now. Yeah, about that time.
Wow.
So since joining a white collar boxing, and it's been it's been a good journey so far.
It's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of ups and downs, right?
A lot of ups and downs, but yeah, it's been one that's been enlightening. So
Okay.
gets me to this spot right here, which is pretty good. So I've got no complaints.
Okay. So look, tell people listening today, where'd you grow up? What was life like as a kid? What was like living on northern beaches? What was family life like? All that kind of stuff. Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, you know?
To give my age away, I was born on the 28th of July 1971, so up here in Mona Vale Hospital. But at a very early age, I think I was only 12 months old, we moved up to the north coast of New South Wales.
Yeah.
So we moved to Ballina. And had a caravan park that my parents bought, and we lived in the caravan park for about 4 years.
What was life like in the caravan park?
It was great.
Okay.
It was great. I remember being a kid. My earliest memories are the floods that came through the caravan park because we were right on the river.
So how old were you?
I would have been at that stage probably 4 or 5. And
you lived there till what, you're 8 or 9?
I lived there till I was about just after my 5th. Yeah, I was probably 5.5 when I moved away from there.
Right, but when did you move into the caravan?
When I was probably 12 months old.
Oh, sugar, okay.
Yes.
So 12 months old to about 5 years old, you were living in a caravan.
Yes.
And you can still remember that?
I can still remember sort of little bits and pieces, but one of my most fondest memories is the floods coming through and the water being up to our knees and going through on our surf mats. I've got 3 older sisters, so obviously I was the baby of the family and very well protected by the girls. They looked after me very nicely and
then after you're 5, where'd you move?
Moved to a little place called Sawtell, just about 10 minutes south of Coffs Harbour.
Right.
Yes.
And how long were you there till?
I was there for 7 years.
Right. And what was life like growing up there?
That's probably where I have my fondest childhood memories. So I had a lot of friends around the area, played a lot of sport back in those days, especially in the late 70s, early 80s. There wasn't all the distractions that the kids have now. There was only 2 TV channels, so we didn't watch much TV. We were out playing sport every day, and all my friends who I went to school with lived nearby because we lived in a little estate of about 1,000 people. So all my schoolmates were sort of 2, 3, 4 streets away, or a couple of doors up the road.
Yeah,
So it was a great childhood. A lot of exploring, a lot of playing sport.
And what was it like with your parents? Was he close to your parents?
Oh yeah, super close. We're a really tight knit family. So my sisters were at that stage. My sisters were just finishing high school and going out into the workforce. And when I was 12, Mum and Dad realised that there wasn't much opportunity for work for the girls up there at Sawtell. So that's when we moved down to Sydney. So I moved down here and started high school.
Whereabouts?
Cromer High.
Oh yeah.
And
big shout out to Cromer High.
Yes, big shout out to Cromer High.
Yeah.
And I was even though I was living in North Manly at the time, I went to Cromer High and spent all my high school years here in the Northern Beaches, and we moved here early 1984, and I've been on the Northern Beaches ever since.
So it sounds like your childhood has been pretty, especially the first 12 years, has all been pretty free country and
yes,
kind of like, how did that shape you?
I think it gave me a appreciation of my childhood. I think my childhood growing up, especially in the country, it gave you a feeling of belonging to a community,
right?
And also being very close to the people. Obviously, in little towns that I lived in, especially in Sawtell, or it was actually called Tormina, or it's a brand new estate just attached to Sawtell. It's a lot bigger now, but back then there was only about 1,000 people in there, so you knew basically everybody around you. So you had that community feel, and I'd be selling newspapers down at the local shopping centre, and everyone would know me. And
And so, what was the transition? So, going from that community to come to Northern Beaches, was it a difficult transition, or did you feel like you slotted straight in? Excuse me.
I think I've slotted in pretty well. Fortunately for me, when I moved down here, I went to high school and had my cousins at the same high school, so I was able to slot in quite well. And my parents actually grew up on the Northern Beaches, so we knew a lot of people down here anyway. So that was an easy transition for me. And even at a younger age, I've always been a pretty social kid. A little bit awkward at stages as a teenager, as you certainly get. But I've been, even though I didn't want to leave, I sort of kicked and screamed and didn't want to move down to Sydney, but after a couple of days at school, you get to meet friends and like I said.
So the transition was pretty smooth.
Pretty smooth. Okay. I didn't think it was smooth at the time, but looking back at it now, it was pretty smooth.
Crome's had a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a hard school. What was it? Was it? Did you get any scraps, or what was going to high school like?
Oh, you got picked on a little bit at school, but that's just part of growing up, and it sort of can shape you as well. But no, I wouldn't say I was the most popular kid at school, but I wasn't unpopular as well. So I sort of mixed in with the crew. And funnily enough, we've got our 30-year school reunion in a couple of weeks, so we're looking forward to catching up with all of them.
Fast,
goes way too fast. And but no, I still have a lot of good mates from high school as well. So they were really good years. You don't realise how good they were until you look back on them. So
So tell us about post high school. What was life like? Really, like, so as we started this conversation, we talked about that you've just recently were diagnosed with cancer. You've gone through that whole process, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But early, growing up, pretty carefree. What kind of things did you learn? What kind of things did you learn as a child that and maybe that continued on in your adult life? Because you're a pretty carefree, wonderful, happy bloke. But what do you think, what was life, I guess we'll get to a few more deeper questions, but what was life like post-school, high school? What was your kind of career path? What was life like post school versus right up till a point, kind of like, if you can keep it short, like up till when you were diagnosed recently with cancer?
Yeah, well, fortunately for me, I was very good at high school in the social aspects of things. I probably wasn't as good in the practical and schoolwork, even though I've been, I consider myself an intelligent person. So probably I don't have the aptitude at school, but I was very good at socialising and making friends, and I decided in the middle of year 11 to leave high school. My parents weren't too happy about it, but they said if you're going to make the decision, you've got to get a job, and found myself a job in Hanamex. Hanamex. They were a photographic manufacturer. They did Fujifilm in Old Pittwater Road in Brookvale. They were one of the biggest employers at that time on the Northern Beaches. So that was back in 1988. And I was still to this day, I'm the youngest person ever employed. There, I was just after my 17th birthday.
Right.
And through there, I got another exceptional grounding. Actually, one of my mates from high school was his mother, who was my first boss. And through them, I got a good grounding, and I was able to be promoted through the company at a young age. And at the age of 23, got promoted out onto the road as a sales rep.
Okay.
So I was able to, with that, sort of travel the countryside, and I used my social skills in that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So I'm through, and at Hanamex as well. So we were actually quite a young group who were working there. So we were not only did we have a lot of fun in the office, but we also socialised on weekends as well. Right. So I was able to get a good grounding and learn from people who were probably not that much older than me. Right. in age, but probably.
So I guess you're just like kind of. So it sounds like your life was busy partying,
I was
making money,
yes,
having a good time,
yes,
and
having a good time was the number one priority.
and that would have been right. And that's probably. I mean, that's probably that's what we need to do in life is have a good time. But
yes,
was it at all costs?
Yeah, look, sometimes it did cost. I think.
How? What?
I think. Well, I know the actual managing director of the company at the time knew my father, and he said to my father, without my knowledge, that he said if your son had more drive, he could go a long way in the company. But I was in my 20s. I was more worried about the weekends and what I was going to do on the weekends than how I was performing. And I didn't, in my job, I'd perform my duties well, but I could have gone a little bit further. But at what cost to myself, who knows?
Yeah, right. And did your health suffer at that time, or was just as a young man it didn't really matter?
Not really. I was playing a bit of sport early on in my 20s, but I got an injury. I hurt my knee, and that sort of put my football career, because I could see that I was never, as a young kid, that's all I wanted to be, was a first grade rugby league footballer, but I never went that far in my football career. And then when I got an injury and I had a good job, I didn't want to jeopardise that job, so I just let the football go, and I continued, just concentrating on my
career.
job. Yeah.
And so then, so we'll kind of move on a little bit quicker now. But like, I think, what about? So you've worked at Hannamax. You're a salesperson. Then what? And then what's life post there? Just what was your job since? And
well, I was there for 12 years. So so I had a really good career. But then I thought it was time to move on, and an ex-manager got me to another role in another company, and I didn't last because the company went insolvent. So we got retrenched. I actually changed a few jobs. My first job was for 12 years, and in the next 12 years after that, I probably had 10 different jobs. All in the same field. And it just got to the stage where I was in my late 30s, and I was getting a bit tired of the office politics. The whole corporate environment had changed, and I probably wasn't taking it as seriously as they'd like me to. And I just decided one day that's enough. So I walked into my boss's office and said, I'm done, I've had enough. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I don't know what I want to do, but I know what I don't want to do, and I don't want to do this. And he said, well, I can't argue with that. So I walked out and come down to Harbourwood Beach Hotel, which was my local watering hole, and sat down, and the boss there, or the general manager of the pub there, who's a mate of mine, Sean King, looked at me, and he knows me pretty well, and he said, what's wrong with you? I said, oh, mate, I've just quit my job, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do now. He goes, that's all right, mate, I'll get your job in the bottle shop. And 10 years later, I'm still there now managing it.
Wow. And what's that been like?
Fantastic. Best move I made. Look, financially, not as obviously not making the dollars that I was financially, but lifestyle-wise and personally-wise, the job suits me to the ground. I know basically 80% of the people who come in mingle there. It's a family atmosphere there. It just suits me right down to the ground, and they look after me really well there. So I've best move I made.
Yeah, right. So because a lot of people think and put a lot of importance on career, and I guess making a lot of money, and all that kind of stuff. But that sounds like that's totally opposite to your values. What's values is community. Correct. Time. Time with yourself, time with family.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, how do you rate that as far as mental health goes? Because I mean, because you are such a happy guy, having that, changing the shift of perspective, life in the corporate world to life at Harwood Bottler, the Cellars. What was that like for your mental health? What was it like for your physical health? What was it like for everything for you?
Yeah, look, I was really struggling with myself
before
when I left the job. When I left the corporate world, I was actually struggling internally because of the pressures and everything, and also too, I was putting probably hard expectations on myself. But I also, looking back on that now, is I probably wasn't pushing myself enough to all these expectations I'm putting on myself, I probably wasn't putting the hard yards in to reach those expectations. So
But even if you did, what's at the end of that rainbow?
for me, and that was the thing.
Yeah.
When I'm committed to something,
Yeah.
I'm 1,000% in,
Right.
giving it my all. But if I'm not committed to it, I'm half-hearted in everything I do.
Yeah.
So either it's got to be something that gets me here,
Right.
for me to give
I think
give
that's
all.
that's a big
Yeah.
thing. I think there's a lot of people, one of the kids watching today and going, okay, what are my career choice, or I've been told I need to do this. But I'm very similar to you. I think we need to operate from a heart space. You find your passion, find what you love,
Sure.
and then maybe that's really what brings you joy. And you've been there 10 years. That goes a lot. That's a lot different. So you're happy in your first job,
Yes.
because it provided community, and
Yes.
certainly provided community and support, and it was that and a social aspect. And that's really how you operate. And then you went to the corporate world, and it's all about making money, getting to the next goal.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're coming back to hardboard sellers, and now you're
Yes.
back to community.
Yep.
And feeling like you have a role and a purpose, and you're important. I think which is really important. That's really important thing for us to feel belong somewhere.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
So everyone watching that, I mean, that really is one of the key things I think to this is that you want to feel. I think well-being is not just about making money and what you have. It's more about what you do on a daily basis. You have to go there every day. Would you say that's
Yeah,
true?
without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt, mate. It's really important for me to function at my best, to have those luxuries that
Right.
I've got around me. And money's not a driver for me, never has been. Look, I'm a single guy. If I was married with kids, it'd probably be a different story, because I would see that as providing for my family. But just me on my own, as long as I've got a roof over my head, I can cover the mortgage every month, mate, I'm happy.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, okay. Now you were diagnosed when with cancer?
April 26. Well, I actually had a colonoscopy in June of the previous year, but was diagnosed April 26 with bowel.
Bowel cancer.
Yeah, so it was
April 26th last year. This year.
this year. So April 26th, they said that there was a polyp in there that couldn't be moved. They actually didn't know whether it was cancer or not at the time,
Right.
but they had done a biopsy on it, and there were some abnormal cells, and they said, look, if it's not cancer, it's close to cancer, we need to get it out. So,
Right.
so
And what happened at that point? How did you feel when you were diagnosed?
I was crushed, absolutely crushed. So I've got a family history of it, so I knew it was something that I had to get on top of.
Oh, really? So who else is
My
suffering?
uncle died of bowel cancer
Right.
on my mother's side, and my other uncle had it but beat it. So the whole reason why was I just got a bit of blood on the paper,
Yeah,
and
right.
went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, look, don't worry about it. It might be hemorrhoids." But he goes, "Have you got a family history of it?" I went, "Yes, I do." And he goes, "Better be safe than sorry. Get you in for a colonoscopy," which is what they did, and they found 3 polyps. Were able to laser 2 off, but there was one that couldn't come off. So, and they took a biopsy of that and said, "Yeah, it's pretty serious. Needs to come out." So,
Yeah, right.
so May 14 went into Royal North Shore Private.
So April diagnosed, May 14 surgery.
Yes,
That month.
yes, that was probably the worst of it. Was just the not knowing. Is it cancer? And if it is, what's going to happen after that? Yeah, it was pretty scary. I lost my mother 3.5 years ago. So on May the 12th, 2016, I lost my mother to brain cancer.
Wow.
So it was sort of, that was coming back up. But it was just, the not knowing. So, went in and had keyhole surgery. They took 20 centimetres of my sigmoid colon out,
Oh my
which
goodness.
is the colon closest to your rectum.
Wow.
And that was taken out, and some lymph nodes were taken out. And then it was the next morning, the surgeon came in and said to me, the surgery was a success. We've taken out what we needed to take out. It is cancer. But we've taken some lymph nodes out as well. We've got to do a test on the lymph nodes to see if it's spread. So if it hasn't spread, we're good. Don't have to go any further. If it has gone in the lymph nodes, then we've got to go into radiation, chemo, and stuff like that. So then it was the waiting game.
Wow.
So it was
What kind of thoughts run through your head?
Initially, not too much. Initially, there was relief that it was out, and even though it was cancer, that it was out of my body. But then, so I had the operation on a Tuesday. He told me this on the Wednesday.
Wow.
And on the Wednesday, he said to me, you'll have the results back on Friday. And then on the Thursday, he's come in and said, the results are going to be back on the Saturday. And I didn't think too much about it then, but I had a lot of visitors on the Thursday. And then the Thursday night, I had my own time with my own thoughts.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it just went, hang on a second, how come it's taking 24 hours longer? So that Thursday night was pretty rough. So it was like, my head was going, it's cancer, it's cancer, it's cancer. And then it was, no, it's not. It's not a death sentence. You'll be right.
So it's like this internal dialogue fight.
And then the same thoughts again, cancer, cancer, cancer. So it ended up my head was playing tricks with me. It was a rough night. I don't think I got to sleep till about 4 a.m.
Wow.
And then the next morning, the doctor's come in and he's woke me up. He's just hit me on the foot. It was about 6:30 in the morning. And he went, results are back, you're all sweet. And then just walked straight out the door. And I've just sort of gone,
wow,
what's happened there?
Right. Wow.
And it took about a minute. It took about half a minute to a minute for the penny to drop. And when it dropped, I burst into tears.
Yeah, wow.
And got straight on the phone to my sisters and my dad and called them. And then he came back in and sat down. And I said, okay, so what's the diagnosis? He goes, well, the good thing is it hadn't gone in the lymph nodes. So you're fine. No radiation, no chemo, but I need to see you twice a year for the next 5 years. So I just went, small price to pay.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
And wow. And so because you're a happy guy, you just live life and you do what you do. Have you noticed there's been any behavioural changes, decisions changes that you've made since you were diagnosed? Has there been anything different in your decision-making process? Or have you noticed anything about your stuff that you're doing before that might have led to this cancer? Do you think anything could have led you to this?
Look,
or what do you think?
I think I've always been one of those guys who like to be fit, but doesn't do enough on his fitness.
Yeah.
But also doesn't do enough on his diet.
Right.
I think my diet had a lot to do with this.
Right.
My genetics obviously did,
Yes.
but my diet also didn't help it along. I sort of fluctuate between, 88 to 98 kilograms when I should probably be around about 85,
So it's all about having a good time, and so your body pays a price for that.
Exactly. It's all about fun for me, and the consequences can come later.
Right.
But the consequences did come later.
Yeah.
And it just wakes you up.
Okay.
So that was when I thought as you said before, I've just done the Kokoda track, and I mentioned this to the guys on the Kokoda track because in the past, when things would get difficult or things weren't really going my way, I'd just move on to something else.
Right.
So I was in the hospital, and my mate Scott Agnew, who organised the trip, said I was emailing him to say, sorry mate, I'm in hospital, getting my bowel removed, could be cancer, and I wrote on there, I'm going to have to pull the pin on the Kokoda trip.
Right.
And then something inside me just went, that's what you always do.
Yeah, wow.
So I deleted it, and I said, I got to get the okay, all the clear from the doctor, but nothing's going to stop me from doing the track.
Wow.
So
it was like, so you would do things that were hard previously, but not see it through to the end.
I could not tell you how many projects and things I've done that I've started but never finished.
So the cancer is giving you the gift of commitment.
Yeah, seen it through.
Why?
I think for me, and it's a tough one for me to put a finger on right now, but I'll probably have a more clearer answer as I go through life a little bit longer. Right. But I think the cancer, it's like I can look back at things and see everything half done.
Right. And
I'd just like for my own personal good to be able to say, no, I've done that.
I've completed.
I've done that, and it's.
Is that more living? See, because I think a lot of people in Australia, it's a great place. It's carefree. We got a beautiful sun. It's peaceful. We don't really fight any wars. We got food
No.
to eat. We you know, so everything seems to be about having fun. It's all about being gratified. We're kind of
Yes.
looking at external stuff to make us feel happy. But like you said, the biggest things to reward you are community time.
Yeah,
Before, is that becoming even more important to you now?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And that was the thing with Kokoda as well. Doing that, we were getting a history lesson
Yeah, right.
as we're doing it, and you're looking at these and hearing stories about these brave soldiers 77 years ago
Right.
fighting in a jungle, and at the end of the trek we got to go and see where some of them were laid in the war cemetery,
Right.
and they're 22, 23, 24 years of age.
Yeah, right.
And I look back at when I was that age, and we're obviously different times, but the sacrifices that those brave young men made for us to have what we have now
Right.
is something we don't think about every day. And it sort of hit home a couple of times on the track that, you know, I'm doing this thing for myself, but I'm actually paying homage to the guys who said it there.
Who gave you that opportunity? Who's giving you the opportunity? I guess the ability to be able to do that.
100%. So it was a journey for me, and the perfect journey for me, and for my sort of personality as well, especially for someone who sort of only sees things halfway through.
Yeah.
Was I'm put in the middle of the Papua New Guinea jungle, and you got to walk from that point to that point, and there's really no pulling out. You got nowhere else to go, and it's just
There's no one coming to save you.
no. And the only way you get taken out of there is if you injure yourself, and you have to get a chopper coming in, and you don't want to be paying for a chopper to come and pick you up in the middle of the Papua New Guinea jungle. So, and it was just simple, one foot after the other, and that was it. And it just doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there.
Yeah.
So there was that journey towards the end, and it was hard.
Yeah.
I thought I was gone after the first day, but then got my legs underneath me, and then we had a couple of big days towards the end, 28k walks, 25k walks over mountains.
Jeez.
And the second last day there was this really steep ridge, and I thought I was gone, but also that sense of community. I had a couple of the guys in the team walk behind me and just encourage me the whole way up.
Wow.
And I was able to also think back on my mum as well too. So the Kokoda campaign happened in 1942, which was the same year my mother was born.
Oh, wow.
And she was born on Anzac Day, so in that sort of little spirit. And I had a copy of her eulogy.
Yeah.
That I read out her eulogy at a funeral, so I had a copy of that in my pack that I kept on me, and I just thought on that, and just one foot after the other. And we got to the end.
Wow.
And it was obviously emotionally the most hardest thing I've done is read the eulogy at my mum's funeral, but physically this was the most hardest thing I've ever done, and it was equally as satisfying and gratifying for me. And it really sort of made me think now too, I don't have to go out and break records. I don't have to go out and you know, do the things that I've got planned. I don't have to have them done by, you know, in a couple of days' time, and then I can tick it off and grow frustrated with it because it's not happening quicker. I just got to maintain the rage and just keep going, and one foot after the other.
Wow.
And eventually you get there.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. And we're talking about instant gratification. I guess having a beer and having a good time, right, makes you feel good at the time. What's the day after like?
I'm one of those guys. If I get enough sleep, I don't really suffer too much from a hangover.
Yeah.
But when I get hangovers, boy, do I suffer.
Right.
So it's
and I guess is it damaged? Like, I guess always doing that, does it just keep you at a certain level in life as well?
Yeah, I think so. But also I think what it does as well too is it just you do have a good time, and you have good memories. You can laugh around with mates, but you also find too that people who you hang around with really don't, especially when they have, you know, other jobs or they get married, have kids. Yeah. So you find your group of friends sort of change after about 4 or 5 years. So
it must get pretty monotonous. So that's the way you socialise, is have a drink.
Yep.
And then your achievements aren't really there, and all of a sudden it takes a cancer scare for you to go, fuck, I really need to live now.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me like, okay, I've had a really good time and I enjoy family and friends, but also what experiences are going to fulfill me? And it sounds like this Kokoda was such a fulfilling experience that a beer can't give you. But what's a beer taste like at the end of the fucking Kokoda Trail?
It was great, mate. It was fantastic. And look, they said that before we started, they said, look, it's best you don't have a drink for a week beforehand. But I said, no, I'm going to do it 4 weeks beforehand. Yeah. So, and that was the other thing too, obviously.
Yeah.
We started the Kokoda in September 19,
yeah.
and I had the operation in May.
Wow.
So I was training up until then, and then I lost 6 weeks. So I had a week in hospital, 2 weeks home recovering, and then I was told I couldn't do any physical exertion for another 3 weeks after that.
Wow.
So I lost 6 weeks of conditioning. So basically I was back to zero.
Yeah.
And I only had 7 or 8 weeks to train again for Kokoda. So that took a bit out.
Did you lose a few kilos in those 7 or 8 weeks? Before you went to Kokoda?
Probably about, I think it was about 3 or 4 kilos I lost.
And then in Kokoda you lost?
I lost a kilo a day, 8 kilos.
8 kilos over fucking 8 days?
8 days,
Jesus.
So it was, the sweat was pissing out of me going down. It was, wasn't that...
But you had a beer after, right? Did you have a beer after?
First thing I did when we got in the bus.
Yeah, but that was the best tasting beer.
It was, the old SP lager from Papua New Guinea. So awesome. It was very gratifying. But that Thursday night, we finished on the Thursday. That Thursday night, then we flew to Port Douglas for a couple of days to really unwind afterwards. The Thursday and Friday night, I think I had 2 or 3 beers each day, and I was in bed by 8 o'clock. So I was physically and mentally exhausted. So I thought Kokoda would be as physically challenging as it was, but I wasn't expecting the mental change. So to be able to just grit the teeth, put the head down, grit the teeth, and just put one foot after the other was really satisfying. And it was really walking over there's a video that I'm sure you will see of us walking over the finish line, and everyone's going over and sort of raising their hands and jumping up in the air, and I looked wrecked. I just walked over with my head down, and the guy who was filming it said, well done, and I couldn't even look up. I just put my hand up and just did that, and that was... But, it's probably the first thing that I can... Well, probably not the first thing, but it's probably the most important thing, again, except for reading the eulogy at Mum's funeral, that I can look back and said, you know what, you should be really proud of yourself for doing that.
Yeah, well. And so, I'm going to ask this message, because I'm in the fitness and health industry.
Sure.
And I think, some of the biggest myths in the fitness industry is, well, it's not a myth, it's true. Eat less and train more, but we all know that.
Yeah.
We all know that. I mean, I've struggled with I've struggled with my weight, and I still have right today. I just did a 30-day challenge not long ago, and I lost a lot of weight. I finished the 30-day challenge, I stopped exercising, I put on weight again.
Yeah. And
it's this continual yo-yo, and I kind of think for me, the times that I've done the best, and which is another one of those times, is just to really, I'll let you say that, but what do you think, if someone, I guess struggled like you and I, it sometimes takes these moments, but do you think we could create this moment of not being diagnosed with cancer or not having some tragedy? Is there something that we could do you think, that would go, you know what, enough's enough, it's time for me to live my fullest life, to go on our own kind of Kokoda track, whatever that might be. And that Kokoda track might be just going to the gym and exercising.
Yeah.
It might be to be outside and just do a daily walk, or be committed to changing their diet. What is the thing that you think that makes that, or creates that difference, or that something's going to last? Because I don't think, like I said, we all need to train, and we need to eat less, or we need to eat right. We all know that. It doesn't matter who it is, we all know that.
Yeah.
What is the thing that's going to cause people to do that? What do you think can get them to that point?
I don't think we focus too much on the actual feeling of what it's like.
Right.
So, walking across the finish line at Kokoda, that feeling of exhilaration, or initially it was exhaustion, but to look back on it now and have that feeling of exhilaration.
Right.
And they say, the best form of combating mental health is to get out and exercise.
Right.
So it's sometimes I think we focus too much on the actual physical exertion, on what you're doing, but it's the it's the feeling of euphoria afterwards is what
Right.
is what you should be doing. And when I was training for Kokoda and just walking around Narrabeen Lake, or we went up to Barrow and we walked from Cowan Station to Barrow Waters and back up to Barrow, like a 15k walk. The actual, although it was physically hard,
Wow.
the feeling of accomplishment and the feeling of exhilaration you have while doing it is what I think we should focus on, and that's why I have such good fun with you down at White Collar Boxing, is because we have fun doing it, and it's hard, and you bloody put me through the ringer a few times, don't you worry. But the feeling you get when you leave, and it's that feeling, and it's like a drug itself.
Yeah, right.
So, and I think we probably don't put as much emphasis as what we should on that actual emotion and feeling we have. We sort of look at the process of how we can try and get there, and we sort of put on the focus on the exercise when it should be on the feeling.
On the feeling and on the and the focus is on the end result.
Of course,
on the feeling of what would it feel like at the end result of this.
Yeah.
And I think we're all like, yeah, exactly. Look, I think you hit the nail on the head. I recently, I'm really a big Tony Robbins fan.
Yes.
And he says, where your focus goes, energy flows.
Yes.
And you've also got to be careful about what you believe, because it's true. So if you hate exercise and you keep reaffirming that belief, you're just going to hate every moment of it. And all you're focusing on is what that feeling is like there, instead of what's it feel like to feel healthy.
Yes.
To be fit.
Yes.
And to have accomplished something. It feels amazing, doesn't it?
The
end result of all of this is feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess if we be honest, right? What did it feel like not being fit, being overweight, being ruled by the pub and your mates at the pub? What did it physically feel like in your body?
Look, when I was down the pub with my mates having a few beers, having a laugh, yeah, that's great. That's great, but you sort of, especially when you come home to a house on your own and you walk up and you look at yourself in the mirror without a shirt on and you see the roof over the tool shed, and it's sometimes it's not a good look, especially when you step on the scales and see that you're putting on more weight, and but then it's, you know, it can be very easy to fall. Yeah, you feel bad about it, but if you're not acting on it, then you just sort of go back
Go back into that cycle.
Go back to the pub, and it's just an endless cycle that you get to. And it's not surprising that the depression we find in males especially is as high as it is, because we do get in a vicious circle. And, you know, guys with stressful jobs, and who are probably not exercising, can go down that road, and it's a hard one to get out of. And I've been in it before. I've had my little battles before in the past too. But I also find, and I had some really good advice from my brother-in-law, and he says, when you're feeling down, get busy. Just find something you love and get busy with it.
Yeah, awesome, great advice.
So it's don't sit around and mope. Just get up, get active, get busy, whatever it is that you're doing, and just work on it. And it's a daily grind, but everything in life is a daily grind.
Wow. Yeah, it is. So, look, mate, this is an amazing interview. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.
I think, in summary, what I heard you say was really, basically, if you're doing something in life, enjoy it.
Yes.
Don't do it for money. Do it because you love it.
Yeah.
And you continue to do it.
Yeah.
Family and your core values, stick to them, hold to them, because that really gives you a fulfillment. It gives you a quality of life that you can't get just by, I guess, climbing the corporate ladder. You might get money, but you're going to kind of, almost like you become, we're on that picture, it's all about making the money or doing the corporate thing or growing the business, but it's where do you sit in that picture?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you changed and did your local little job that you felt that community again, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I heard you say was, it was all good and well to have a good time, you're having a good time with your mates, but it's kind of the same thing all the time.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're not really living life to its potential, you're not experiencing the Kokoda track, you're not experiencing the potential of what you've been given, I guess, as a human being.
That's right.
And I guess this scare was like, okay, well, you know what, I've given up on everything in my whole life. And that could also be because alcohol and maybe that social circle was the most important.
Yeah.
But actually, no. What's most important to me is seeing something through the end and accomplishing this. So,
Yes.
and focusing on, and the way to get that result is not to focus on the grind of the hard work.
Yeah.
It's the feeling of what the hard work gives you.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
And it's the feeling you get when you've put your mind to something and you've actually seen it through, and you go through the grind of it, and it's not fun when it's happening.
Yeah.
But the fact that you just stuck at it,
Yeah.
and you didn't take the easy way out, you just stuck at it, and that feeling of accomplishment when you hit the finish line is something that you can't describe it until you've done it. And it's something that to the people who have done it should be proud of myself, and I'll give myself a pat on the back for it too.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to ask you one more thing, which was, what's life going to look like now post Kokoda? Does life look like it's going to go back to the pub every day or hang out with your mates, or what's that look like going forward?
No, it doesn't. Obviously there'll be times that I want to share with my mates, and obviously have a few beers here and there.
Of course.
But there's for my health going forward too. I've got no option but to have a better diet, take better care of myself, do those walks, hit the gym. I've got to do it for my own personal self, for my own personal health, because I've had this scare. Yeah. Thankfully, we got it early enough, and the results show that there's only a 10% chance, because we got it early, of it coming back. But I've also got to look at what my lifestyle was that led to that point, and so I've got to make changes to that. And there's things that I've been talking about a lot. A lot of my mates would know what they are.
Yeah, right.
That I want to do, and I'm sure they hear me say it and go, "Oh, he's been speaking about that for years." So now it's up for me to make those changes. So, and I don't mind saying it on here, but my number one goal, and it's been for a few years, is to jump in a van and head off and try and work my way around Australia.
Oh, awesome!
So that's my sort of the ultimate goal I want to see myself doing. So whether I can do that in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, who knows? But it's something now that I can focus my efforts on to get towards, and
perfect.
Now that I know that I've got the metal in me to do it, it's something that I just don't want to leave as half-hearted or half done. So awesome. we got to work our way through it. But that's my number one goal. So I may as well get it on camera so I can hold myself to it.
That's awesome. I think previously for me as well, my fitness journey, I was when I was training to make it to the Olympic Games one day, and I felt really pulled and always driven to exercise. And when that goal left me, felt like I had to push myself.
Sure.
And I think every time I set a goal in front of me, I feel like I'm being pulled towards that goal. So the effort to go towards it is a lot easier.
Sure.
And it sounds like that's how you're living your life now today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel also too that it gives me some focus as well too, but to also to give me that drive so I don't get late, because when I am a very lackadaisical person in my nature, but to have that sort of goal there for me to drive towards. I feel if I don't have something like that there, then I just I'll be back at the pub having 6 or 8 schooners. So
we've got the dog barking in the background.
The dog knows. Yeah, but look, mate, it's we've all got one crack at it, and there's some things that I would have done differently in life, but I'm a pretty lucky person to have had the life that I've had, and to have the people around that I've had, and the journeys that I've had.
Yeah.
I'm 48 years of age, but I plan to be around here for at least another 48. So perfect. I may as well. First 48 have been fine, but I'm looking forward to the next 48, really making a fist of it.
It's been really a pleasure speaking to you today.
Absolutely,
and
mate.
getting to know you. A lot of things you shared today I didn't know about, and I think this message and this story is a very powerful one, because you're not the first nor the last person to be diagnosed with cancer. We all struggle. We talked everything from mental health to your physical health journey and what drives you now. And I think those are all really key lessons that we can all learn. I mean, I've really learned a lot from you today. And so thank you so much for your time, Steve.
My pleasure, Simon. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us with Conversations with Simon. This, again, is another value add to you. I hope this helps you on your fitness and health journey and also your mindset. And we look forward to seeing you on more coming episodes of Conversations with Simon. Thanks for your time.